Off we go. Okay. So welcome spring, right? Hopefully. I feel like I mean I actually like cold weather, but like I've had enough. I want spring. So we are going to do a very simple drawing. Basically, we're going to be doing a circle. We're going to make our eggs. And then we're going to put our pencils down and we're going to do the watercolor first. And then we're going to add the colored pencil. So just giving you a sort of a play-by-play. So we're going to start off with our circle. So we want to make sure that we create, oh, also, I'm sorry, landscape mode in case you didn't notice that. So I'm going to see if I can put this up here, right near it. And oops, sorry, I had to change my screen. There we are. You know what? No, I think it still looks better here. Okay, so make sure that your circle is in the middle, as much in the middle of your page as possible. And then also you want to make sure that you have enough room for your nest because this is the center of the nest. And you can make as many eggs as you want. Um, I liked three because I felt like it was a good balance, but if you want to put more, feel free. I think I had somebody when I did it with Feasterville, they had kind of stacked them, and I did that with one of them too, and I thought that was pretty neat. So you can stack them if you want, but I'm just going to lay these kind of right near each other. And so we're definitely working with some simple ovals, although you'd be surprised at even how, ovals can be a bit challenging. So, yeah, I guess a lot of us will be dyeing these as Jean was doing today or starting. I guess you were starting to. You were
Yeah.
yeah. You didn't exactly do it yet, but you're on your way. I'm gonna try the beets and the carrots sound interesting. I'm gonna try some natural ones. I'm gonna look it up after this.
Yeah.
Very curious. So let's see, I'm gonna fix this a little bit. And so you also want to make sure that everything is light, meaning your pencil, just your pencil is light since we are going to add watercolor to this. Yeah, I'm thinking about doing another one like this for the fall, kind of like a fall one. Maybe I'll add some leaves and like twigs. So I might do another bird's nest because for some reason I thought a bird's nest was really fun, and I feel like it's kind of easy, and you can, even though it looks challenging, it's really not. Once you get into it, I think it's kind of fun. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bird's nest for different seasons. So I think I'm going to do one for fall and then one for winter. I was just thinking that we could do like snow kind of thing. Okay, so you want to make sure to lighten up all your lines before we get started with the watercolor. As you can see, I'm doing that now. It looks really light on Zoom. Let's see. Okay. And so, as far as the blue, so I'm just using the basic Crayola, and the blue is like almost like a turquoise. So I use a bit of that, and then I also use a bit of the purple mixed with the blue to get more of a royal blue. And then I also use some black, very light black, so that it comes out gray on top to get, sort of the grayish color. But let's start off. I'm going to clean off my palette here. I usually do that beforehand, but I guess I forgot. So you could also mix green and blue. Let's see, I did one with, let me show you the one I did with Feasterville. I decided to kind of change up the color a little bit. And so that's with green and blue. So I thought that was pretty neat. You know, the original, obviously, it's with the blue. So we're going to start off light as usual. And basically, you know, the darker parts of the egg would be more towards the edge, and then your lighter parts would be going towards, you know, the center. So I'm going to take my water here, and I'm going to start to kind of spread out the color that I already added, and then kind of want to leave a bit of the white in the middle so that it looks like, you know, it's a bit of a shine. And you're going to do that for all 3 eggs, and getting, you know, progressively a little bit darker on each one. But I like to kind of start off with having them light and then building it up. So I'm going to kind of do that for the next egg, and just take your time. I was kind of going fast with this egg just because I've done it before, but somehow it's very satisfying to paint eggs. I mean, not real ones. It's satisfying to paint those too, but I find, I don't know if it's because they're kind of circular. I don't know. I found this project kind of, you know, on a personal note, very satisfying when I created it. And then, but even more so as I'm repeating, you know, repeatedly doing it, I'm like, this is kind of fun for, I mean, not that they're not all fun. I don't know what I'm trying to say. It was kind of relaxing. I think because there isn't a whole lot of thought with the eggs, and it's kind of a very simple design. And you can add different colors. I mean, you could add, like I added for the other one, more of like, you know, a bit of some, you know, brownish kind of golden to make it look, you know, even more realistic. I feel like these look more realistic than my original ones because I kind of played with the greenish blue, but yeah, you know, or you can make them really light. You know, and at the end, I forgot to mention, you know, we will be doing, you know, some, going to make them speckled along with, you know, the rest of the paper doing that too. So I'm going to start now building up the color here. So I'm going to go in again with the blue. We also use the colored pencil, the sky blue colored pencil at the end too, to give it a bit more of some color. I'm realizing people tend to like the mixed media ones. And I'm kind of getting into those too. So I think some more of those will be coming towards the fall. I like to leave enough time where I start the projects where I can experiment so that the failed ones don't make it to you guys. And, you know, hopefully sometimes I figure out how to make it better. Okay, so building up the color, I'm now going to introduce a bit of the gray, which is the black. So again, you can leave this step off if you want them to be, more blue. You could also add a little bit of purple in. Might actually try to do that. Add a little purple in with the gray. That would give it a really nice color too. So again, I'm just kind of pushing my water or pushing the color from the color we already have down here. I recently just finished teaching a session. I teach an adult art club at Warwick Township Rec Center, and the biggest complaint I had, which is from a lot of people, watercolor is so difficult, and I agree, but I like to kind of look at watercolor as well, at least what's helped me, because I'm not really a watercolorist. I wouldn't consider myself a watercolor artist, but I love it, and I like to think about it like I'm doing colored pencil, so in layers. And so definitely building up using light first, you know, applying the color light. And then as far as the water is concerned, because that's a big thing with watercolor, how to control it. Um, Again, I use the brush as if I'm shading. So I pull a little bit of color into the other areas. So if you can kind of maybe look at it that way, I wonder if that's helpful. It's kind of a slow buildup. All right, so I'm adding black to this one. I feel like my eggs come out differently each time, but I'm not mad about it. It's kind of fun. So again, I'm just, slowly pushing the water and shading using my brush. Let me know if your watercolor feels differently, if you try that and it's helpful. A little more black here. I love about right now too, it's still light enough to be able to kind of go outside. It's getting lighter, lighter later. It's great. Okay. I think I'm gonna add a little bit of purple on this egg. Let's see what that looks like. Just a little bit. Yeah, so I added just a tiny bit of purple as well, but you don't have to. Again, basically originally I just stuck with the blue, and then to get a little darker, I did mix a little bit of blue and black, and then sometimes I mixed a little bit in some parts. I mixed blue and purple to get more of a royal blue. At least again with the Crayola, which is what I'm using. Okay. And then when you're ready, so basically what we do is we leave the center of the nest alone for now because that's going to be all colored pencil. So when you're ready, what you want to do is start to create the nest on the outside. And we start off using like yellow as our first color. And so basically, following the, the drawn circle, using the yellow, and that kind of gives a nice base, kind of a nice base color for underneath. You can also, if you don't like the yellow, you can mix your yellow with some brown, although that is the next color, kind of a yellowy brown, and we're going to use orange. But so, as you can see, the first base color is yellow. And what you want to start doing is kind of going around in a circle and then starting to extend. Let me see if you can see this. I'm going to put it up close. So then you want to start to kind of extend out the color in these sort of, I guess tendril isn't the right word, but basically what we're trying to do is make, the twigs and, the stuff that, all the stuff they make the nest with. And you're going to just keep following that around until your nest is nice and full. And so it's as if we are building the nest. So at first, going closest to the circle, you're just worried about getting that color in. And then as you go around, you're leaving white spaces of the paper. Let me mix a little bit of orange so you can kind of see this. I feel like it's very hard to see on Zoom. So now I just added some yellow and orange mixed together and a little bit of brown. And I'm just building up the nest, literally. And you can make some crazy, sort of some kind of, crazy ones that are a little bit wiggly. Although I tend to wait until I do that with the colored pencil, but you can do it with the watercolor. Actually kind of looks kind of interesting with the watercolor. So as you can see, I'm just building it up. Add some more. So again, this is a mixture of, after you're done with the yellow, I may add a little more yellow. You're now adding a mixture of like yellowy, like yellow, orange, and brown. Kind of mixing that off to the side here. So if you have that color and you don't have to mix it, it's even better. And just build your nest up. Build your nest like you're a bird. We're also going to add some grayish blue with our watercolor by mixing black and blue together. And let's see. And we're going to use pure brown as well, but I'm just still building up. I'm going to add some more yellow. Again, I like the yellow to be the base to kind of shine through a lot of it. Again, working from light to dark or darker. Okay, so I've built up more yellow. Now I'm going to switch to adding some more orangey yellow and then orangey brown. You know, and you can do whatever combination that you like to do. And then the key is to kind of let this dry. And we'll do the center using colored pencil. And then we'll be letting, you know, as it's drying, we'll then add the colored pencil in the nest. And then we'll start to kind of add all the speckling. So I feel like it's pretty simple and fun to do, and I feel like you can make like a ton of these if you wanted to. So just keep layering your colors. You can also mix brown and black together to get a darker brown. I think I'm going to add that for this one. So right now we're just adding all of the many colors in nature. I think bird's nests are so cool. I recently just saw one. You know, I feel like there's times where I haven't seen one in a while and I forget kind of like what they look like. Like I made this one up. But sometimes they've got like fuzz in them and
Dog hair.
yeah, like I don't know what it is. It's like it almost looks like cotton. I saw one recently. I'm like, where did they get that? So yeah, maybe it's different. It's like yeah, hair, different animals or something. Very interesting. Okay, so next, so adding the browns, the yellow, and adding some orange. And I'm also going to be mixing in black with the brown to get some more darker. There's some dark brown. And then finally, you know, the kind of the bluish black. So I'm going to mix black and blue. So I just mix black and blue and I'm adding a little bit of that too, especially around kind of the outside of it. I am doing it on the inside too. And you can start to have fun with, some of the parts of the nest and make them kind of squiggly. And I even like to add a little bit of um, like going around the outside of it. I'm adding a little bit of some, again, like the black and blue. And I'm kind of softening the outside, just adding I just feel like it gives it a little something. This step you don't have to do, but I did do it in my original. I also used brown in the other one, but I just kind of soften up around the outside. You can do it a little bit even on the inside if you want. That would kind of look like this. So kind of adding a little bit of, color so that there isn't so much white showing in the nest, but it's up to you. We're going to be going over it with colored pencil as soon as it's dry. I'm going to do a few more ones that are kind of extended a little bit with the watercolor. My nest is a little crazy. I feel like it's getting bigger as I work. I'm going to let this dry for maybe about 5 minutes, and you can kind of bounce it up and down. Or, yep, if you have a hair dryer, that'll work too. I used to have a hair dryer like plugged underneath my table here. I don't know what I did with it. Sometimes I get in modes where I'm like cleaning stuff up, and I'm like, why is that there? And I put it away. I feel like that was one of those times. Like, duh, you do watercolor, that's why it's there. And you can put aside when you're ready, you can put aside your watercolors for now. Um, the next step, whenever you're ready, is going to be the colored pencils, doing the inside of the nest. So we just want to make sure that, we know that the eggs are dry, and we can also add coloring to the eggs too. Even though we had coloring with the watercolor, I like to go in with colored pencil and do that too. So you could do that at this stage if you like. You just have to make sure, be careful not to smudge, kind of like smudge the nest part. Although it probably wouldn't look too bad even if you did, because it is a nest and we're going to be kind of adding colored pencil to it. But so the inside of the nest is black, brown, and blue. The first using the sky blue. And I also use the sky blue for shading in the eggs a bit. So I add a bit of texture to them with this. So again, you have to make sure that it's dry, because if not, colored pencil is not going to stick to the paper. It's going to kind of just glide on it. So what I'm doing now is using the sky blue to accentuate the outside of the egg. So basically what I'm doing is I'm kind of just going around and um, outlining the egg and then going back and adding some shading with the blue. So this is where you can get creative and add, and again, this is sky blue. You could do it with, regular blue. You could also add some brown spots if you like, or gray spots. You could use your black. We are going to go back and speckle them with the watercolor. But if you want, you could also do that with your colored pencils. But basically, I use the sky blue in order to just enhance a little bit of the shading and give it some. I'm going to go in real close so that you can kind of see what I'm doing here. So I'm going in and kind of hatching a little bit, if you're unsure what hatching is, it's creating shading by using lines that are usually kind of right next to each other. And then you can cross hatch and go the other way. Just doing it kind of light. So just kind of showing you what it looks like on this egg. You can kind of see the strokes of the colored pencil. So I'm going to do it on this egg too. I especially like with this one because I used purple, and now adding a bit of the sky blue gives it an interesting look to it. Going a little bit darker as far as, when you're kind of going around the egg, especially maybe in one section. I'm going to decide that this part is a little bit darker. So I'm going to lay on the colored pencil a little thicker. Kind of start to kind of color it in on top of the watercolor. And same with this egg.
Good girl, sorry. All mine are blue. There's no white. Look at that before. Oh well.
And so the next step is to start to go darker inside the nest. And so basically, I use black and brown for the nest, starting off with using brown, and then we get progressively darker, especially in the middle. So I'm going to kind of show this one. So if you look, you can see that there's brown and black in there. It gets really dark as we get toward the center where the three eggs kind of join together. And then I actually add on top of it, I add blue using the sky blue to kind of give it a little bit of a bluish tint. So you can start off using brown. And so you're basically going to be coloring in the part of the nest that we haven't touched yet. You want to make sure to outline each of the eggs along the outside of it, since, they're sitting in the nest. And we'll go back afterward and make it really dark using the black. But first, again, let's kind of gradually build up that color. So first going around using your brown and outlining your eggs. And then shading around using your brown. And it doesn't have to be where you're shading really dark yet. Maybe just making it a little more solid. And because you're using watercolor, you're going to see the white of the paper, kind of like the bumpy parts of the paper. But we will go back and make that a bit more solid. But first, we'll just add that brown around. I'm going to be rotating my paper around so you can kind of see. Hence, this is where the mixed media comes in. The second medium, I guess medium. Oops. Knocking stuff off my desk. So I just went around with the brown. And now I'm going to start to get a little darker with the shading. So now making the parts around each egg darker. Still using the brown, but we're then going to add a mix of black to this as well. And you can start to kind of go around as if you're also making, twigs in the nest. So taking your brown, and, kind of lifting it up. And instead of coloring, adding strokes, individual strokes. And eventually we're going to add that to the rest of the nest here. In the meantime, starting to get more solid in the middle of the eggs and around them. kind of directly around them. Because there would be shadows. You know, they're sitting kind of inside the nest and making an indent. The other thing you can do that I didn't even think about what you could do is you could even create, you know, maybe after we speckle them, you could take your colored pencils and kind of create some loose parts of the nest that are on top of the egg. You could. So here, starting to darken up around the nest. And at this stage, you can start to extend a bit of that nest. You know, we've been working on the inner circle, but you can also start to, if your watercolor is dry enough, you can now start to create other parts of the nest using your colored pencil. So basically I'm taking the brown and I'm starting to do exactly like what I was doing with the watercolor, but instead using the colored pencil. So creating, you know, sticks and stuff like this.
Here, that brand peanuts at Giant. They didn't have that brand of peanuts at Giant. Okay, stop.
So with the nest, you want to start creating, oops, I think I was outside of the camera there. Sorry about that. I realized I was doing it off the camera because I had done the close up. So creating, you know, kind of wiggled lines to create even more texture for the nest. I'm starting off with brown. This is where you can use the brown, sienna, you want to use gray. You can even use your golden yellow as well. So you want to continue to add the colors using the colored pencils, but you can also use, you know, go in different spots and kind of color in like so, using the brown and the black. And it makes it look like that it's sort of, you know, stacked, which is what we're going for. Also looks like there's bits and pieces of things in the nest. It makes it look a little more realistic. And you want to start, you know, all the while also making the inside of the nest darker. And so you can start to add the black as well. So kind of doing quite a few things here. And again, you know, as we did with the brown, I like to go around with the black and, you know, make it darker around each of the eggs. And then start to also layer that color so that you're filling in the white spots of the paper. So I'm going to start building up that darkness right here by now adding in the black. You can still see, or should still be able to see, the brown as well. You know, because it's a nest, you don't want it completely black, which is why we add the brown and the black, and then we're going to add the blue on top. This is going to give your hand a workout for sure because of the watercolor paper is so textured. So here again, building up the darkness right where the eggs are laying in the nest, and then a little bit starting to extend it a bit outward. And you're going to start doing the same thing with the black. You can start to extend out the nest using the black colored pencil. So if you can see, I'm doing that now. Oops, I just broke the point. Thank goodness for sharpeners and erasers. So also with the black too, again, you can add these sort of, I like to add these kind of colored in lines that make it look like it's pieces of twigs that are popping through. And then at the same time, you know, making, you know, wiggly twigs. And again, using black, we're going to add some of the gray and also even the sky blue. But first, going back and concentrating on making the inside of the nest darker. And then when you've still got spaces left, between your blue and your black in the center, you're going to take your sky blue and you're going to color over everything. And that's going to give you these kind of twinges of blue and also solidify the inside a bit more. But at the same time, you still have all these colors showing through: brown, black, and now you've got blue. And it's going to turn out to be a little bit more greenish as well because you already have yellow in your nest. And yellow and blue make green. You know, you can take this blue, this sky blue, and also I like to kind of go around and add some blue into the nest, especially around the outside. So lots of colors, colorful nest. So again, you're doing a few things. You're adding it to the center of the nest. You're adding it to the actual nest. You're also adding it from the nest, you know, kind of pulling out and adding kind of the squiggly twigs. I think I just coined my own phrase, squiggly twigs. I'm going to darken up around my eggs now, even more. So adding more black on top of the blue. It kind of gives it this burnished look. The other thing I like to do too is add a little bit of brown on the egg. Kind of like on one side coming up from the bottom, just to give it a little bit of some more shading. So using the brown colored pencil, just shading a little bit on the egg, mostly around where it would kind of be touching above the where it's sitting in the nest. And again, this is, you don't have to. Remember to add your, a bit of gray colored pencil here. As we're working on finishing up. So our last part is going to be the kind of speckling. A little bit of yellow to this egg. And then when you are ready, speckling, the splattering, you can use brown and black. And so I'm going to start off with using brown speckling here. Splattering, I'm going to mix it with a little bit of black. You want to make sure you get your brush nice and wet, and you're going to tap. You want to make sure that everything is covered, or as much as covered as possible, as far as your surroundings. So this is brown. I'm going to go in with black too. Might add a little bit of yellowy, kind of yellowy brown. That now. Just for a different color. Yeah, you can even go in, and if you need to add a little more color on your nest, you can do that too. But now I'm going to use the black. I like to kind of go on one part of the egg for the splatter, like one section. You don't have to, but maybe add a little bit of, maybe a little bit of blue speckle. Kind of had fun with that part. curious to see if anybody is ready to show theirs. I think I'm gonna stop the recording.